Hey everybody, Bombastic Bill here, talking to you from my shitty onboard camera, my laptop. Just want to take a little break from talking about flat earthers and basically anti-science types and kind of go on a little political rant here. So there's two types of people that really piss me off in terms of belief systems. This is not about politics. And those are creationists and evangelicals, and then super hardcore committed atheists. And the atheists I'm talking about are like the atheism plus crowd. Not the regular old atheists because, reason and blah, blah, blah. And the reason why is growing up Catholic, we studied the Bible. And I went to a Catholic school, I went to Catholic high school, and when we studied the Bible, we were taught that it was didactic fiction. It was, it was something that was trying to bring about a point or a teaching, a parable, if you like. And it made sense to me, it made sense that, he's probably not, the Bible doesn't mean that somebody actually got swallowed by a whale here. They probably mean it figuratively. Okay, he was, hidden from the world, swallowed up by something. And that makes sense to me. What really pisses me off about evangelicals and creationists is they take that literally, and that it can't be anything else but that. And to me, that always seemed to put a limitation on God. It basically wrote God into a box. It's kind of like a shitty TV show when you kind of have a hole in your plot and you just fill it up with some shitty, and then this happens. Okay, Deus Ex Machina, if you will. So I always hated that. And then, learning about science and getting my degree and everything, and getting a job in the STEM field, it really kind of opened my eyes as to, this world is very complex. Yes, it is. And God does not need to poof things into existence. Okay? I'm not saying God is just a complete watchmaker where he does one thing and everything falls in line after that. The thing is, I don't know. And that's what I love about Catholicism is that we have mysteries. We have things where we just don't know. And that pisses off some atheists too, because they don't like that answer. I'm okay with I don't know at certain points. That doesn't mean you stop studying, but you can have limits to your knowledge. And then on the other spectrum, with atheism, especially as atheism plus, it's not necessarily the atheism that gets me, it's the moral superiority that comes with it. I can't stand people that feel that they're morally superior or believe that because you believe in God that you are somehow, a Bible-thumping redneck. And it's funny when atheists claim that believers are not rational or anything. Nobody is completely 100% rational. We're not robots, okay? We all believe in weird things that probably aren't true. I'm sure every atheist guy has had something where, I bet if I wear this shirt, this girl will like me. Okay? Something completely irrational in your belief structure. That you might even know it's not really true, but you still do it anyway. Or you might believe it's true, but you know what? It's completely benign and nobody knows about it. So it doesn't affect anybody. And that's why I believe that if you're an atheist, you should really have, toleration for people who do believe. So, again, 99% of atheists I completely agree with. I love, Thunderfoot, Logic, Sargon, all those guys are great. I agree with them on 99% of things. So 1% is I still believe in God. The other hand, I don't believe in the creationist God. Okay, I don't believe in a God that just poofs things into existence. Okay, God's more mysterious than that. So now I'm done my little religious rant here. I want to talk about my politics. So one of the things that really, really makes me angry is how people have co-opted the left-right spectrum. So, for example, what you will hear all the time: Hitler was right-wing, Stalin is left-wing. I don't see it like that. In my mind, the left end of the spectrum is a complete totalitarian nanny state. The right side of the spectrum is complete, basically anarchy. And you have any kind of degrees within the middle. Okay? So when I hear, oh, he's right wing, he's left wing, blah, 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 that doesn't, it's not the same spectrum that I use. So in my mind, I'm right wing. Okay? I'm right of center. Okay? I believe that, limited government is the best government. But I'm also very socially liberal, okay? I'm totally on board with the marijuana laws in Washington and Colorado. I think those are perfectly okay because the people voted for them. I'm a big states' rights guy. So, for example, I don't agree with Roe versus Wade. I think, life begins at conception. But I have no problem with people who want to practice abortion because, you know what, they looked at the laws and Supreme Court, rightly or wrongly, determined that it was constitutional. Now, does that mean we have to bend over backwards and support everybody who wants an abortion? No. I mean, I just saw this stupid thing on John Oliver where he's bitching that states are making it tougher to, have an abortion with doctors having to have admitting privileges and blah, blah, blah. You know what? That's fine. If you want to live in a state with more abortion clinics, move to that state. No one's stopping you. Okay? You don't have to make it, free to all. For example, in Colorado and Washington, they passed the law about marijuana. Does that mean that they have to have marijuana in schools? No. It doesn't mean you have to make it any less or more easy to obtain it. Okay? The other thing, too, I believe is I totally think Donald Trump is a fraud. I really think he's worse than a rhino, a Republican in name only. He's worse than somebody like that because he's just looking out for himself. I don't really think he has any ideology in mind. And it's almost like a creationist running where, what are you going to do? I'm going to make things better. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, say this or do this or make this better. Who are you going to, I'm going to hire the best people. How are you going to deal with Iran? I'm going to deal with them in the best way possible. I mean, that's like taking it past Obama level platitudes. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have people like Bernie Sanders who want to basically give away things. I mean, there is a point where you cannot give away things to enough people to satisfy their demands. You're going to have to keep giving them more and more and more. I was doing my taxes this year, and I was like, I gave $7,000 to the government last year, and it's like, what do I get for that? And a lot of liberals are, oh, you get to drive on roads, blah, blah, blah. I pay gas taxes, too. I didn't even factor that in. So, I mean, at what point does your money is not going to do any good? Speaking of which, I just watched a great documentary. It was great up to a point on horror movies, American horror movies. And it came a point where I got so pissed off. They were in the 1980s, and they were like, oh, this is the time when horror movies became more violent because they were mirroring the horrors of Reagan's America. And I was like, what was so horrible about Reagan's America? I mean, they bring up these things like, oh, people were more paranoid back then, and you couldn't trust anybody. No, people were trying to fight communism, okay? Communism was on its death throes, but we didn't know that. And what we did was we tried to invest everything we could into bringing down their downfall. And we eventually did by the end of the decade. And so it's a difference between that, where under Reagan there was deficit spending, but it had a purpose. It had something in mind at the end. So you increase defense spending, so that's going to make the the Soviet Union tried to increase its spending too. And you're cutting taxes for the rich. Okay, you're cutting capital gains tax. What that does is that motivates people to work harder for their money so that they can earn more money. So you're growing the economy. So those have something to do in the end. And what did you get? In the 90s, you had basically an economic boom. Okay? So, of course, they don't happen overnight. What pisses me off is today we have record deficit spending. I think Obama spent more money than all the past presidents combined, okay, in terms of our deficit. And what do we get out of it? What's the future going to be? Do people really feel happier about their future? So that's why, no matter how much the Republican Party can piss me off a lot of times because they don't do anything, I still loathe to ever vote for anybody in the Democratic Party because they just don't realize what makes the world go around. And I was watching a bunch of things on Justin Trudeau today, the new Liberal Prime Minister of Canada, and I realized kind of what the big difference between liberals and conservatives is. It's liberals, no matter what happens, if they do anything infinitesimally good, they will just shout it out to the mountaintops. They will tell everybody about it. Everyone's got to hear about how great this is. And, things that go wrong, they completely quiet down. Okay, I mean, say, look at Benghazi in the Obama administration. Look how ISIS is flourishing. They are loath to talk about that. Look how little Obama, he was in Cuba, for Christ's sake, how little Obama has been talking about the bombing in Brussels. Okay, so they kind of shy away from that. Whereas I think conservatives in the past have kind of, they're not media savvy. Okay, so any little thing they do, they just consider it part of their job. It's done. Okay, and they don't trumpet it enough. And then when things get bad, they want to address it right away. I mean, I don't know if you remember back in the 2008 campaign, but McCain basically stopped his campaign to try to deal with the crisis of the housing crisis and the Lehman Brothers crisis. So it's that difference that I think that has a real fundamental. It forms a gestalt in people's minds. When you think of liberal, it's like, oh, they're trying to do the right thing. Look at, they're saying they're doing the right thing. They must be doing it. And then when you really kind of scratch the surface, it's not what it appears. So yeah, that's a little bit about my politics and kind of my religious philosophy. I want to know if you guys agree with me. I mean, where am I wrong on this? Where am I right? Do I totally have my head up my ass on these things? If I do, please comment and tell me if I'm wrong. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. What's your philosophy? So, I mean, that's the other thing too. It's believing in this marketplace of ideas, this free transaction of ideas that I really, really believe in. That's why I'll never, turn comments or voting off on my videos. You can call me an idiot. Don't quit your day job. I've heard a couple times, which I don't mind. It's what the internet's for. So, again, please rate and subscribe. Thanks, guys.